Module 16, Digital Speech Corpora. So far we have discussed about the availability of some major text corpora. In this module, we are going to refer to or discuss in brief some of the speech corpora available to us. As we know very well that development of speech corpus is a very complicated task. Naturally, the number of speech corpus available in many languages across the world is also very less. So some of them are very, very famous. They have got very uniform structure and good content, good development procedures. So we are going to discuss about those things. But before that, we need to refer to the challenges involved in generation of the speech corpus. It is almost clear to us that it's a very tough task to convert a natural normal spoken text, random or recurrent in our daily verbal acts within existing computer technology. It is still a troublesome task to compile, manage, process and access these texts. To achieve the goal, we require a team of experts in phonetics and phonology, as well as experts in the field of linguistics for speech data collection, transcription, documentation, and analysis. Also, we require computer experts who can handle speech data in computer for its processing, analysis, and manipulation. Finally, we require a set of sophisticated tools and systems that we can directly deploy in spoken text collection, storage, management, processing, analysis, and utilization. So it is very clear that there are several challenges involved into it in speech data collection. The process of spoken text conversion, transcription, and annotation is a rigorous process, expensive one, time-consuming task. These are some freely downloadable and easily executable tools to do these works on written text corpora. But such tools are broadly available for corpora, rarely available for the corpora of written texts. So we need to keep in mind that the tools and systems which are available for processing written texts may not be equally applicable for processing the spoken texts. So we need to have an entire new set of tools and techniques to handle with written spoken texts. And unfortunately, not much tools and techniques so far accessible or available to us to access and process speech text corpus. If we keep in mind that these issues, then it becomes very clear that compilation of data from spoken interactions, developing a speech corpus, processing it and analyzing it is a complex task. It cannot be done so easily. Transcription is one of the complex issues that needs extra care on the part of the corpus designers. So point is, another important issue also involved into it. So the tools so far developed for English and some other advanced languages are very good for English and some other advanced languages. But while we are trying to utilize those tools for, say, Indian languages, we are having many more troubles. So it becomes imperative to us that we should also try to develop or customize those available tools that can actually address the problems, the issues involved with text, spoken text in Indian languages. So it's not necessarily that tools which are already developed for other languages can equally or blindly be applied on Indian language texts, Indian language speech data. So there are many challenges involved into it. Then, keeping these things in mind, we are making a general relevance or justifying why this survey is required. There are questions relating to the relevance of this survey of speech corpus generation. It's quite natural. You might ask the question why it is required. So it is, in a simple term, we can say that once we have understood or got some information about the survey of text corpus, it is also required that we should have some ideas about the availability of speech corpus. Actually, this will give you a rudimentary primary knowledge base to realize where you stand with regard to generation of speech corpora and what kind of efforts should be initiated to develop those. So this present survey has certain relevance. Firstly, it provides a general introduction about the present trend of speech corpus generation across the languages and language types. First thing. Second thing, it also helps to know how these works are carried out at various centers and organizations across the countries or across the world, so that that knowledge base can help us to imitate or to follow simplicities. It also presents the pertinent reasons for initiating similar efforts for the Indian languages and speech varieties. It helps to identify the areas and domains from where speech corpora may be developed or procured or utilized. It also helps to check out the general guidelines and methodologies required for generating speech corpora among Indian languages. Finally, it also helps us to identify the people to train the required manpower and the technology that is necessary for successful completion of speech corpus generation projects and activities in India. So keeping there are some logic or some importance or some relevance of this task in the main frame of corpus linguistic research and development activities, and also with a focus on the possibilities of generating corpora among Indian languages in future, speech corpora particularly, we try to justify why this kind of task is relevant here. Now we are going to refer to some of these speech corpora so far developed in English and other languages, so that we can get some ideas how we should proceed. The Survey of English Usage, which is known as SEU, is a project that was initiated in 1959 at the University College London, UK, under the guidance of Randall Quirk, and it was completed by Sidney Greenbaum in 1989. The SEU is made up with 200 English samples of texts. Each one of these contains 5,000 words to make a total 1 million words. All the text samples are collected and compiled over a span of 30 years. Half of the samples are obtained from spoken English texts, while the remaining half is collected from the written English texts. The spoken texts that are included in the Survey of English Usage comprises both dialogues and monologues, while written texts include printed and manuscript materials, and the examples of English read aloud in broadcast news and scripted speeches. The composition of the speech part of the SEU corpus is something like this as presented in the table. So here we find that there are 500,000 of words are there coming from the speech part. What are those major areas where from the text collected? It has two parts, speech part. One is monologue, another is dialogue. So the monologue part contains 24 samples comprising 1,20,000 sentences, while the dialogue part comprises 76 samples comprising 3,80,000 words. Within the monologue part, spontaneous monologues have 18 samples, 8 samples from orations, 4 samples from commentaries, 4 samples from sports commentaries, and 2 samples from non-sports commentaries. And 6 samples are prepared but unscripted oration. In the dialect part, we find there are 60 samples from face-to-face conversations and dialogues. Out of those 60, 34 samples are surreptitiously recorded spontaneously on the spot, and 26 samples are non-surreptitiously recorded. In the 16 samples where telephonic conversations are included. Thus, the speech part of the survey of English usage contains 100 samples comprising 5 lakhs or half a million words. This speech part of survey of English maintains clear distinctions between text taken from monologues and dialogues. That is also required because we know the construction of texts in monologue and the constructions of text in dialogues are two different strategies. So also the public discussions part. The basic thing is that the uniqueness of survey of English usage is that the speech part has 3 or 4 broad divisions: monologues, dialogues, public speeches, scripted speeches. As we know that all those texts are constructionally different, purpose are different, their structure is different, texture is different. So all the varieties of uniqueness of those 4 text varieties are being captured in SEW. So SEW speech part is an unique part where you can get all kinds of texts produced in spoken form, and each one presenting a unique characteristic, character type that may not be. The primary goal behind the constructions of SEW is to provide language resources for accurate description of grammar of educated adult speakers of English. For this, major activities of the SEW are related to assembling and analyzing the corpus comprising of samples of text of different types of British pronunciation, English, spoken and written English. The corpus is complete in the sense that original target of the corpus of 1 million words was achieved within the time span of the project, and the utilization part of the corpus is well envisaged, and in fact it is being used by the target community for the purpose it is made of. So the data now available in SEW are being used for various kinds of analysis of speech, speech recognition, speech synthesis, speaker identification, intonation pattern detections. The basic thing is that this speech corpus has been a model to be followed for other languages. The next one is London Lund corpus of spoken English, which is broadly known as LLC corpus. The London Lund corpus of spoken English is made with spoken texts derived from 2 projects. The first part is made with data taken from the SEW, while the second part is made with data obtained from the SSE, Survey of Spoken English. The second part, that is SSE, is started by Jan Sartik at the Lund University, Sweden in 1975 as a sister project of the Survey of English Usage. The initial aim of SSE was to make available in machine readable form spoken English texts which are collected, compiled and transcribed by this time. The database was made with 87 total texts totaling nearly 4,35,000 words. So it's also a huge collection of data. The text materials were converted in a separate way and in a much reduced transcription scheme without adding grammatical analysis of any kind. In early 80s, the first copy of computerized version of the London Road corpus was made available for the interest of the people, scholars all across the world. At present, the LLC has three major components. One is called LLCO, which has 87 texts, that is the original corpus. Then LLCS, which has 13 texts as supplement to the original corpus, and LLCC, complete corpus of 100 texts. The transcription notations strategies method used for computerized LLC retains all the basic prosodic features for full transcriptions, but omits all the paralinguistic features and certain indications of speech and stress patterns. The transcription strategies, the methodologies that are used on NLC can be summarized in such a way. Say, tone units, all including those subdivisions and subordinate units, are retained. Onsets, first dominant syllable in a tone unit is marked. The location of nuclei, direction of nuclear tones, that rising tones, falling tones, levels, polarized tones, etc. are marked. Boosters, the relative pitch levels, etc. are marked. 2 degrees of pause, brief pauses, and unit pauses alone or in combinations are also marked. 2 degrees of stress, the normal stress and heavy stress, these are also marked. Speaker's identity, simultaneous talk, contextual comments, say some laughters, claps, telephone rings, and all those sounds are also marked. Sometimes some words are incomprehensible. It is not audible or not clearly understood. Where it is uncertain what is said in the recording, that is also marked. So these are also marked in this corpus. That makes a unique property for that. Now this corpus is made available for specialists for scientific research of various kinds relating to speech. The text samples, either in full form or in the reduced versions, are extensively used throughout the world in studies relating to spoken English and in comparison between the spoken and written English across the globe. Also, comparisons are being made drawn between LLC and the Love corpus and the Brown corpus, referring to the frequency of distributions of words and other linguistic properties. The Spoken English Corpus, SEC. In 1984, a joint research project for automatic assignment of intonation of speech data was undertaken at University of Lancaster in collaboration with the Speech Research Group of IBM, UK Scientific Centre. The aim of this project was to collect samples of naturally spoken British English that might be used as a reliable database for analysis and testing of the intonation assignment programs. The project resulted in formation of the Spoken English Corpus, SEC or SEC, a machine-readable speech database of 53 recorded passages from the British BBC recordings. It covers speech samples like news broadcast, lectures, and dialogues made up with 52,600 words, contemporary English and British English. The project was supported in 1984 and 85 also by Lancaster University and IBM. So this has been one of the major resources in speech corpus. A major part of SCC is obtained from the archive of the British Broadcasting Corporation UK. The total number of words collected so far is around 52,000. Following the conventions used in the lab corpus also, each sample text is assigned to an overall category identifying the part number. Also, each text is given an absolute number to indicate its positions in the corpus as a whole. So, this table gives idea how the corpus SCC is composed. So, there are nearly 9,000 words from contemporary commentary speech texts, 5,000 plus words from news broadcast, 4,000 plus words from lectures of to the general audience, 7,000 words nearly for restricted audience, 1,500 words, 1,500 words for religious broadcast with liturgy, then nearly 5,000 words for magazine style reporting, then 7,000 words from fictions, 1,200 words from poetry, 7,000 words from dialogues, 1,500 words from propaganda, and nearly 3.5 thousand words from miscellaneous. So, grand total is around 52,000 words included from the different categories. The basic strategy that has been followed for the time of selecting the text materials, text samples, that if a speaker of a sample uses a particularly strong definable regional accent, she is not considered. This has been relatively easy for those materials which contain samples of the BBC program. So, since they are asking for text samples that constitute the standard British pronunciation or British representative pronunciation, they usually ignore those spoken text which has a lot of regional varieties. So, there has been an attempt also to maintain the balance between the male and female informants who will provide data. Although there has been an attempt to make a balance, to keep a balance into this, in reality it has not been. Also, because the number of male members are more in providing data than the female members. So, in conclude, if we want to conclude here you can say that the effort for speech corpus generation is not so wide, so varied, and so spread across the globe as we have noted in cases of text corpus. This is quite clear from the situation, from the technology, from the techniques, and the problems that are normally faced in compilations of speech corpus. At each stance now, because of many hurdles, it is not possible to develop speech corpora in many languages in the world, including those of Indian languages. Although there are written text corpora in all the languages. However, this does not imply that there has not been any effort at all, any kind, to develop speech corpora. Indeed, there are, but these are very limited, very few, and their less number automatically indicates that this is a very complicated task, very complex project. But since the goal of science is to win over all hurdles and to convert impossibles into possible, apparent hurdles in speech corpus generations actually motivate large number of scientists nowadays to devote much attention towards this. As a consequence, you can expect that some speech corpora are developed, both large and small, and some are in the process of being developed, and in near future that may be available to us for our research and development activities and utilizations. Also, the speech component, speech part, which are also available in other corpus, general corpus like British National Corpus or Corpus of American English or Corpus, say, Spoken Hindi. These are actually giving us good guidelines, good impetus to understand what are the problems involved into it, and as well as to identify the new strategies, new methods to overcome those problems. So we expect that even though at its present stage, the number of speech corpora is very less, we expect that maybe after some time, the number of speech corpora are more in number and more varied, and we will also be able to create speech corpora or to generate and utilize speech corpora for most of the Indian languages. Thank you.